Let's get into those Los Angeles Chargers. May have had the best offseason of any team in the NFL. David Droegemeier, co-host of Locked On Chargers, joining us today to talk Chargers, talk Justin Herbert, and how this team looks in the ultra-competitive AFC West. Coming up right now.
You're listening to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show, your daily podcast on the National Football League, powered by the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson here with you. As always, at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL on Twitter. Thanks for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And joining us, a very special guest from the network, co-host of Locked On Chargers, David Droegemeier, at DroTalkSD on Twitter. And I guess, do you have to change your handle to DroTalk LAC? Or are you still just up in San Diego these days? It looks like you got the old Chargers colors in the background as well.
I do, yeah, and I'm not changing it to LAC. As we all know, I can't really make any changes to the Twitter handle now that I'm verified, so right, yeah. I'm kind of stuck. But I am from San Diego, born and raised, and so that's not going to ever be taken away from me. So it is a little bit of a part of my identity.
How well have those San Diego fans traveled up to LA with the Chargers? Have they grown their fan base being in LA? Has it sort of hurt them that some San Diego fans maybe said, "Oh, that's BS. I'm not following this team up to Los Angeles"? You know, they're not the San Diego Chargers anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly the biggest problem for the Chargers is when they left, they basically alienated the entire city of San Diego. They didn't include them in their move. I feel like if they went, and I understand they want to turn over a new leaf and they want to immediately try to capture the hearts and minds of their, new fan base in their new region, but they didn't have to alienate the fans that they had for 50 plus years in San Diego. If they said, "Hey, we tried to make it work. Unfortunately, the money didn't, it didn't work in our favor. So we had to move up to LA. We still want to do events here. We still want to include you guys." I feel like that would have been the much better approach to not, just discard all of those fans they already have. And I do also, being back to San Diego a couple of different times, there's a lot of Charger fans still in San Diego. I think a lot of them are in the closet, like they don't want to be seen, but they're definitely there. They're listening, they're watching, they're paying attention, but they don't want anyone to know it.
I mean, along those lines, though, this is maybe the most exciting team in the league, although the other LA teams were coming off Super Bowl too, and that doesn't help, I would imagine. Do you expect attendance to be a little better? Like as a Steeler guy, we look at the Charger game like, oh, that'll be 70% Steeler fans. Right. Do you think that improves going forward?
Absolutely, I do.
Good.
I mean, I think last year already was a turn for the positive as far as attendance was concerned. I think they had a lot more sellouts. They had a lot more actual Charger fans in the building. And yeah, there's something that we definitely take personally. As Charger fans out there, we know that the idea is that the Chargers don't have a great fan base and that they don't travel well, and they want to change that for sure. And obviously what helps, that's winning. And having electric players, right? Like Justin Herbert and Derwin James and Austin Eckler, guys that are marketable, that can bring butts into seats. And I think also what helps is that Justin Herbert performed extremely well in those prime time, nationally televised games that really opened up the rest of the NFL to, hey, this Justin Herbert kid is for real.
5,000 passing yards.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, 5,000 passing yards, 38 touchdowns in his second NFL season. He's got so much talent. It's absurd. Is there even more there for Justin Herbert? Is there something you say, you look at a 5,000-yard passing season and you say, oh, actually, there's this he could even improve on, and maybe that team's even better, and we're not even talking about the additions they've made this year yet.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Justin Herbert, the crazy thing, guys, is he hasn't been in the same offensive system since he was in high school. It's been a different offensive system, a different coach every single year. So this is only the first time since high school that he's going into the same offensive system for the second year in a row. So absolutely it could get better. They had to dump all of the offense onto him last season and tried to teach him something that's completely foreign to him. And he even admitted, he's like, man, I was drowning. Like in the beginning, they threw so much at me. And hey, this guy's incredibly intelligent too. Let's not forget he was an academic Heisman at Oregon, so he can take it, like, but that's just a lot of information to absorb. And now this season, he doesn't have to learn the system. He knows the system. So it's much more about mastery. It's more about adding and subtracting things that worked, things that didn't work. So I think what's going to be even better for Justin Herbert this year is the efficiency. I think he's going to cut down on the interceptions. He had about 15 interceptions last year. Now, a couple of those weren't his fault, as are all interceptions with every quarterback, right? But that's going to go down because he's going to have even more mastery of the offense. He's going to be more comfortable with his wide receivers. They didn't have a lot of turnover on the offensive side of the ball. So I think Justin Herbert's efficiency is going to go way up. I think the passing percentage, I think, could eclipse 70%. And I see the interceptions dropping below 10. And I think you might not see more yards overall, but I think you're going to see much better efficiency with Justin Herbert, and that's not a bad thing.
So I have a few fantasy questions to throw at you. It's this kind of fantasy season. Of course, this correlates with the offense as a whole.
Yeah.
Do you see Austin Eckler as like a top 5 fantasy back? Do you see Spiller being the answer behind him? Let's just start there, and maybe the short yardage guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Austin Eckler is definitely a top 5 back just because it's so incredibly effective however you gave him the football. And I think last year he had over 900 yards rushing, but he's always been a fantastic receiving back. And he had 20 touchdowns last year, which is crazy. And I don't think around the NFL he gets enough credit for that type of performance. I mean, 20 touchdowns is awesome. And I know you look at Chargers history and you see LaDainian Tomlinson get 30 plus touchdowns. But I mean, hey, in this day and age, 20 touchdowns is very, very impressive. But the Chargers have cycled through 2 or 3 different draft picks to try to find
every year
running mate for Austin Eckler. And Austin Eckler is a great player, but he's not the type of running back that's built to take those inside carries and give you, 25 to 30 touches on the ground. That's just not the way he is built. He's not put together that way. So Isaiah Spiller, coming out of the SEC, looks like he's been battle tested. He looks like he has that size. He has that wiggle. He has that contact balance that you're looking for that could spell Austin Eckler. And I think you might not get as much touchdowns from Austin Eckler, but I think you're going to get a more efficient version because he's not getting beat up game in and game out. So I think Isaiah Spiller is a fantastic partner for him, a guy that can really spell him and not see the production drop off so exponentially.
Is it more of an A and B? Because it seems like Spiller can do a lot of they're built very differently, obviously. But it seems like it doesn't need to be like an early down, third down back situation. You can just kind of spell him and have Spiller come in and just take a series and play every down in that series, then bring it back Eckler and play every down on that series.
Yeah, I mean, that happened a lot last year. It's just, they had to take Eckler off the field for a series or two just to give him a blow, give him a break. And, unfortunately, the guys that they cycled in there, whether it was Justin Jackson or Joshua Kelly or Larry Roundtree, none of them were effective at all. Like it was, when they came onto the football field, it was kind of like, well, we can erase the run because these guys can't get any type of production on the ground. So we know they're throwing the football when Eckler is not on the football field. So, yeah, I mean, it would be much, much better if Isaiah was to be able to come in and be able to give good production to pair with Austin Eckler. The Chargers have desperately missed that, and their running game took a big hit because of it.
So at the wide receiver position, I'm a big fan of Josh Palmer coming on as a strong number 3. I think he's got a really bright future. But considering where Allen and Williams are in their career, their age, their prime of their careers, and the money they're now getting, could Williams be the one, or is that a reach?
No, I don't think it's a reach at all. I think when you look at Mike Williams, especially him playing the X receiver in this offense or the number 1 guy, I mean, he got featured a lot last year and he made a lot of big plays, but Mike Williams has always made a lot of big plays. I just don't think that he was given the platform to show that he could be the number 1 wide receiver. And I think last year it was kind of 1A and 1B there with him and Keenan Allen. But the thing with Keenan Allen is his game, I think, transcends time because he doesn't win with speed. He wins with precise route running, and he has very, very good hands and he just knows where to be. He understands and feels the soft spots in the zones. That's what makes him so incredibly effective. And I think that game is going to continue to translate for him because, hey, when you need a first down, Keenan Allen is a first down monster. That's what he does. He converts at such a high rate, and he has done that consistently throughout his career. I think if you need a first down, you're going to go to Keenan. You need a big play or you need a touchdown, you're probably going to Mike Williams.
More with David Droegemeier of Locked On Chargers coming up. I want to talk about the coaching staff. We got to get to the defensive side of the ball as well. And you can't forget the big men up front and a really remade offensive line over the last couple of years. But first, I want to let the folks out there know about BetOnline. And you excited about the Chargers in 2022? Well, guess what? Super Bowl futures. You can bet on tons of NFL action, even though it's not NFL season currently. How many passing yards will Justin Herbert have? You can bet on that. Wins and losses, coach of the year, offensive, defensive, rookie of the year at betonline.net, your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including NFL futures, NBA finals, NHL, Major League Baseball all summer long, fighting news and wagering, MMA, UFC, boxing, even Vegas casino games as well, live betting, esports, and more. BetOnline is your continued source for not just sports information, but wagering and, Vegas casino games. In between bets, play a little blackjack or poker too. So have a lot of fun at BetOnline. Head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks again, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you are subscribed up to the Locked On NFL channel. That is also the home of not only the Locked On NFL podcast, but the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show and tons of other great content. And remember, your team is covered right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So very easy to find that second listen after, of course, you make Peacock and Williamson your first listen every day. David, offensive line, really quick. Let's finish up the offensive side of the ball here. Yeah. And Zion Johnson, first-round pick. The guy looks like an action figure. Some versatility, guard, center, even tackle. I have a feeling he's going to get plugged in there at right guard. But talk to me about the rookie and talk to me as well how good last year's rookie first-rounder was. And I love this. This is how you build a team, right? You go big-time quarterback, and then it's like, okay, let's get him a career franchise left tackle. And let's keep running the ball. Let's keep him protected in the inside pass rush as well with Zion Johnson this year in the first round. So I love this. And talk to me about the last year's first round draft pick and offensive tackle Slater and this year's Zion Johnson.
Real quick, I want to piggyback off that before you do, because I didn't think it'd be a guard. I thought it'd be a right tackle. But I think Zion Johnson's a tremendous player. And trust me, from my Steeler background, Matt Fiedler might be that right tackle. So I'm curious what you think of how all the pieces fit in, and especially what BP said. These last two first-round picks are really exciting.
Oh, no doubt. And the first thing that comes to mind when talking about the Chargers offensive line lately is I know Phillip Rivers is pissed. Like he's got to be so mad being with the Chargers for 15-plus years, and now – he leaves, and a couple years later, they finally invest premium talent and draft capital in the offensive line, and he's got to be just so mad about that. But last year, just starting with Rashaan Slater, going chronologically, when we reviewed him in the upcoming, going into the draft process, we're like, man, this guy is amazing. He sat out a year, but didn't matter what you asked him to do as a run blocker. He's running people over. He's grading people. He's washing people out in pass protection, no matter who you go him up against. I think that his biggest battle was against Chase Young, and he just erased him. Erased him in college. And then you obviously go into his first season as a pro, and he did it again. That was the first matchup was him and Chase, and he absolutely just stonewalled him. How you know that is by halftime. He went to the other side and rushed over the right tackle. He's like, I'm done with Rashaan Slater. And that happened a lot last year. Rashaan Slater was a first team or second team all pro as a rookie. And I think that's really all you need to know about how impressive that young man is. And he wow. The great ones have the great mindsets. He said he watched his tape every snap last year and saw a lot of plays that made him cringe. And I'm like, hello, have you seen who played left tackle for the Chargers the last 15 years? That's what made you cringe, and you were a second-team All-Pro. calm down. Okay. Like he played fantastic football, and
he'll be just fine. Yeah.
Just what the Chargers needed. Like, oh my goodness. And then Zion Johnson here. I think Zion was just the cleanest prospect in the first round of the draft to me. I feel like he was a safe pick. Yeah, it's not a sexy pick. Nobody wants to draft a guard in the first round. It's not a wide receiver. It's not a running back. It's not someone you're going to be able to see those results translate, night in and night out. But for me, that's exactly what this offensive line needed. Just another guy to mix. They have a really good mix of youth and veteran experience on that offensive line with Rashaan Slater at left tackle, Matt Filer, who I think very well could possibly move over to right tackle because that was the biggest problem last year. I think you look at this offensive line and 4 out of the 5 members, you feel very, very good about, especially Corey Linsley in the middle of that offensive line, having an all-pro center, taking some of those protections, as far as responsibilities away from Justin Herbert, taking a little bit off his plate. If they move Matt Filer over a right tackle, who has already played right tackle at a pretty damn high level in the NFL, I think you could plug in Jamari Sawyer, who is a 6th-round pick from
I was shocked
Georgia.
He fell that long.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me.
I think there's issues with the medicals as far as what I heard. But to me, this guy, you can plug and play at guard, and he played tackle for the the college championship team there. So he has some great versatility. This offensive line's been completely remade, and I think they're actually at a competent level, which is something you couldn't have said the last 14, 15 years.
And even before looking at the additions that were made on the defensive side of the ball, I want to talk about coaching first because we talked about young quarterback fixing the offensive line. There's a lot going on the offensive side of the ball, and the most important thing a franchise can have in the NFL is that marriage of quarterback and coach. And now, so you have a coach coming into his second year. He's clearly a smart guy. And I thought it was funny in the offseason because everyone's like, oh, they need like a 350-pound nose tackle because they can't stop the run. Stopping the run is the big problem there. Some 4th down decisions and things like that. People love to second guess those types of things with Brandon Staley. But what was the focus of the offseason? It was still stopping the pass and going out and getting a pass rusher. And so it's really interesting to see how Brandon Staley and he's unapologetic about it. He knows that it's the passing game in the NFL that is the most important thing. And look, they addressed, I think, the run defense too. But what do you think is important for Brandon Staley going into year 2 before we really start to dive into those pieces on defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's important for Brandon Staley is, in year 1, it was all about trying to get as much protection for Justin Herbert as possible. And he kind of put his defense on the back burner. And I think he also kind of trusted in his ability to teach his new defensive scheme. But the bottom line is this: he didn't have the personnel to be able to execute his defense the way that it should be executed. And, he kind of did the best he could with what was available at the time. And so after the season where they're able to see all the glaring holes on the defensive side, and you have a defensive coordinator, with the Rams, who had the number 1 defense in the NFL, I think the expectations for the defense were much higher than 27th in the league.
So I think it's pretty clear that Staley is set in his ways. Maybe that's not the best way to say it. Let's say he's dedicated to the analytical approach, kind of like Brian was saying, stop the pass first. They were bad against the run. They were horrible against the run, but some of that's by design. They're going to play lighter boxes. They're going to limit the big play. They're never going to be in the top 10 against the run, and he's going to go for it on 4th down. Like, I think he's unapologetic, and he's totally in on the analytic way of looking at things, and will probably sink or swim accordingly.
Yeah, it's very, very true. But also, I think a lot of that going for 4th down last year was also like, hey, who do I trust more? Do I trust, my superstar young quarterback to be able to go out there and make a play? I don't really trust my defense because they didn't show me a reason why I should trust them. So I think, a lot of that was, hey, I'm going to put the ball in Justin Herbert's hands. He's going to go make a play, and we're going to stay on the football field. And that helped them win, several games last year. But I think this year. Let me
stop you real quick, because something I've said in this show a bunch too is, if I'm going to go for it on 4th and 1 all the time, maybe I'll draft a future Pro Bowl guard and a 230-pound back.
Yeah, no, I mean, very true. Oh yeah, the Chargers and Brandon Staley, they have all bought into the aggressive approach. They said, this is the way we're going to play football here. That's how it's going to happen. And, we are unapologetic about it. That's how we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
How impactful do you expect the addition of Khalil Mack to be for that defense?
Oh, it's almost immeasurable. And the reason for that is just taking a look at Khalil Mack, the player. he was excellent last year before he got hurt. I think he had 6 sacks in 7 games. So, any kind of story or anybody saying he's dropped off that's a complete fallacy. That's a complete lie. And I think it's important because of what it does for Joey Bosa on the other side. Joey Bosa has never had a running mate the caliber of Khalil Mack, a former defensive player of the year. Khalil Mack is such a complete player. He can stop the run. He can absolutely rush the passer. And now you can't dedicate resources to chipping and double teaming and triple teaming Joey Bosa. Now it's pick your poison. Now it's, are you going to block Khalil Mack or are you going to block Joey Bosa? Pick one. And then, oh, by the way, you have to worry about Derwin James also being brought down in the box, playing star or money and coming after your quarterback too. So I just think it adds such an incredible element to this pass rush that they haven't had before. And I think it's going to be incredibly effective. I mean, hey, the defense in the NFL is all about rushing and covering. And the Chargers addressed those two emphatically, bringing in J.C. Jackson and trading for Khalil Mack.
They sure did. And massive star power there. I don't want to say it's as important, but I think the Sebastian Joseph Day is not too far off that addition because he comes from the Rams playing the exact same scheme, that light box, gap and a half type of thing. And again, they're not going to be top 10 against the run, but if somebody like him in there is doing their job, they might not stink at it. And I think that's all they care about.
Well, Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson, two of the interior defensive linemen that they signed this offseason are top 15 in the NFL and run stop percentage. Mm-hmm. These two dudes, that's what they do. They were brought in for one singular purpose, and that is to stop the run. They've done it at an extremely high level in the NFL, and Brandon Staley and the Chargers expect them to do that for them this season.
I was a little surprised at how I thought J.C. Jackson was going to actually get paid more.
Yeah.
And do you think that was part of them saying, oh, man, I guess we could fit J.C. Jackson in too, along with Khalil Mack? And look, and they did add to the defensive line as well. So there is a lot of you're talking about 4 new starters out of 11 on defense, right?
J.C. Jackson was actually someone who was recruited hard by Derwin James, and Derwin James and J.C. Jackson actually played flag football together as kids. So they already kind of had an established relationship. They also saw each other at the Pro Bowl, and Derwin James was also continuing to recruit him there. And I think, honestly, by the time free agency came around, J.C. Jackson basically told his agent, I want to go to the Chargers, get the deal done. I don't really care, where the money is, as long as it's comparable, because I think all of us, especially, me and Dan, expected J.C. Jackson to get a $20 million per year kind of contract because that's what he had displayed the last couple of years. He had 17 interceptions the last 2 seasons alone, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you don't earn the moniker of Mr. INT for nothing. And that's definitely why. And you bring him to the fold at $16 million per year, getting a true unequivocal number 1 corner in this league, especially looking at the other contracts, was a steal.
I think I could win a game or two in flag football with J.C. Jackson, and especially Derwin James. Imagine Derwin James on your flag football team.
Maybe even go both ways a little bit with those.
Yeah, we could probably get the ball in his hands here and there.
Absolutely.
All Last thing I have for you, super quick. Tillery and Kenneth Murray, former first-round picks. Is it time to really worry about those guys, especially Tillery?
Absolutely, it is. I know we've been worried about it. The thing with Jerry Tillery, it's always been consistency. It's been flashes of brilliance. We've seen plays like against the Dallas Cowboys going up against Connor, one of their obviously all-star guards that they had at the time. One play, he absolutely blows them up, goes through and gets the running back on the ground. And then the second play, he's getting absolutely mauled and washed out. And that's the problem with Tillery, is always consistency. And then for Kenneth Murray, it's just been, he's been injured every single year. And when he was on the football field, he was not very productive. And I think with the star power that's around him now on this Chargers defense, it's either put up or shut up.
Yeah, now or never.
Because there's no excuses. I mean, you're going to have holes to run through as a linebacker. You're going to have pass rushers on the outside. You're going to have guys on the back end that can cover. So now it's do your job or we're going to have to move on.
David, do you have time to hang out for one more segment and talk a little bit about the division there, which is
Let's do it.
Division to talk about. Matt and I have talked so much about the West, so I want to get your opinions on how the Chargers look there in the AFC West. But I got to let the folks out there know about Built Bar, and there's all kinds of new flavors coming all the time at Built.com. Caramel brownie is one of the latest. Chewy chocolatey brownie. You know the flavor, but you don't know about having a caramel brownie that tastes like a treat, but is only 4 grams of sugar, only 130 calories, and 17 grams of protein. That's what you're getting with Built Bars. It is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. So get rid of all those snacks that are terrible for you with 30 grams of sugar that completely wreck your diet by just cramming one down your gullet every day. Just don't even have it in your house. Don't have it at your desk at work. Get yourself a box of Built Bars. Get that high protein, low calorie, low sugar combination that your body needs. And guess what? Most Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. So your taste buds will thank you for it too. You don't have to sacrifice taste for eating healthy anymore with Built Bar. Tons of great flavors at Built. New flavors coming all the time. They've got the puffs, the classic flavors. I love the peanut butter. You can get the new caramel brownie at Built.com, but you might have to act fast because the new flavors sell out very quickly at Built.com. Just go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, that is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Okay, David. I mentioned it a little bit ago, but I thought it was fascinating because when you are building the Chargers and you're in the AFC West and you see what's going on in that division, and then Russell Wilson joins it, and you've already, you just got some really great talent in such a competitive division, and you're a team that everybody points to and says the big thing that you have to do better is stop the run. And so what do? They go out and get the best pass rusher they can find on the market and the best free agent cornerback on the market, because guess what? Patrick Mahomes still scares you more than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? And Derek Carr throwing to Devontae Adams still scares you more than Josh Jacobs. So I thought that was fascinating, and they did some work on the defensive line as well. But the arms race in the AFC West is just super fun. And now when you add everything else that all the other teams have done, nobody got worse, and everybody probably got better or at least stayed the same. So the Chargers, they were on the outside looking in last year. Did they do enough to take that next step and maybe even go win the West?
I'm going to say yes. I think every avenue of what they did wrong or what they struggled in last year has been added to emphatically. They couldn't stop the run. They bring in guys that can stop the run. They didn't get enough turnovers last year. They bring in a guy who had 17 interceptions the last 2 years. They bring in a Khalil Mack, who is also one of the best strip sack artists in the NFL, pairing him with one of the other best strip sack artists in the NFL, Joey Bosa. So I think every aspect of the defense, and then the offense was already top 5, and then you add another fantastic offensive lineman to that group. I think Justin Herbert is primed to break out this season. He has all of the supporting cast members that he needs. I think up and down the offensive roster, the defensive roster, there are stars, at every single level. And I think you feel very confident that if this team is able to stay healthy, then they absolutely should contend and should honestly probably be one of the favorites to win the AFC West this season.
So I certainly have some more divisional questions for you, but I have a little exercise for the two of you. When I hit 3, spit out the best Bosa. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Joey Bosa.
Oh, it's Nick. But then you got to give credit to Dad, too, because without Dad, there's neither one of them exists.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that.
And also a first-round pick. And when every winter, they go back and work out with Dad, and they come back even better.
Yes.
It's amazing the shape that Nick
Bosa
showed up.
Credit too, though.
Yeah, well,
I mean, both the spectacular genes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good genes there. And it's funny because Nick Bosa comes back from minicamp. He's got this Florida tan, and his body fat percentage is to the point where, you start to get worried because you can't get too low. It's like below 4. That's like unhealthy. It's amazing the shape.
It's like John Cena status.
Yeah, exactly. Right. What is going on here? So yeah, they've got some good genes, and that family puts in the work too, which is maybe the biggest key out of all of it.
Back to the division real quick, though, David.
Yeah.
I might take the Chargers. I'm torn between the Chargers and Chiefs, but I think there's a lot of value in the fact that Andy Reid wins 5 or 6 AFC West games every year,
Absolutely.
like clockwork, and they've been there. They've done it. Chargers didn't even make the playoffs. Are we disrespecting the champs a little bit here, a little bit?
I mean, you have to beat them, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
You have to. I think you have to have that chip on your shoulder. You have to have that belief that you're going to be able to supplant them. And the Chiefs have been on top of the division for the last 5 years. They went to the Super Bowl the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't think you can beat them, you're not going to. So I mean, mindset is a large part of it, but also I think you just trust the work that you put in. I mean, last year was great with the offense, and you saw. And I think that's why I'm excited about the Chargers, is that they saw obvious deficiencies on their team and they addressed them.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Said,
it doesn't happen for every single team. So that's what gives me confidence that they have that situational awareness to understand where their problems were and how to fix them. And I feel very confident that they did fix them. But also, I've said this on Locked On Chargers, I'm tired of the noise. I'm tired of the attention the Chargers get every single year. I want them to just go out there and handle their business. I think they've done enough talking with the moves that they made. Now it's time to strap up and go show everyone in the NFL and the AFC West that the Chargers are actually for real.
So clearly, to win the West, you've got to go through Kansas City. Are you more worried about the Broncos or the Raiders, though, now in 2022, just between those two teams?
Yeah, I think with the Raiders, they've always had some kind of ineptitude as far as their organization and how they've run. Some of their draft picks are always a little bit, crazy to me. I don't understand it. The Broncos are a monster in waiting because they've had an incredible defense year after year after year, and a lot of those pieces are still there. And they have a young crop of wide receivers that are very explosive, and I think have just been missing a premier passer to be able to get them the football. Now they have that. That is very dangerous. I mean, especially with Russell Wilson. Now, knowing that Russell Wilson likes to throw the ball up a little bit, and so I think the Chargers will be in position to get some of those interceptions. But that's a team I'm very, very concerned about because they had the defense. Now they have a quarterback to orchestrate the offense, and so I am concerned with the Broncos more so than the Raiders this year.
Well, it's going to be fun. If I'm not mistaken, it's the Raiders, right, in week 1 that travel to Los Angeles to face the Chargers, and then the Chiefs in week 2. So right off the
back to back, baby.
Division opponents. We'll find out a lot about that. And Chiefs
show up, Chargers fans. Get there. And you don't want that to be the black hole.
Please.
Chargers in prime time. And is that a short week? That's a Thursday game.
It is a short. I'm happy to get the Thursday night out of the way early because I mean, I'd much rather have it in the beginning where the bodies are fresh and the minds are fresh, get it out of the way, and then, full steam ahead the rest of the season.
Not as deep on the depth chart. And, right. Yeah.
Be a statement game by those Los Angeles Chargers in week 2 primetime at Kansas City. I can't wait for the 2022 season. David, really appreciate you jumping in with us and staying through the whole pod and breaking down not only the Chargers, but the AFC West. You guys can find him every day on the Locked On Chargers podcast, a must listen for any Chargers fan, and of course on Twitter at DroTalkSD. David, appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
And Matt and I will be back tomorrow talking about the rest of the NFL as we do daily here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Talk to you then right here. Peacock and Williamson.
Awesome.